I'm Sophia, 32 years old, and 2 months ago, on Thanksgiving night, in front of 30 relatives, my parents handed my sister a $13,000 cruise package and gave me a crumpled $2 lottery ticket with a mocking smile. They didn't know that little ticket would change everything. $100 million changes everything, but not in the way you might think. Before I tell you about the moment my family's house of cards came crashing down, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. I always love seeing my friends tuning in from around the country. Now, let me take you back to that night. The night everything began to crumble. The Crawford family Thanksgiving was always a production. It wasn't a warm, cozy holiday like you see in commercials. It was a stage where everyone performed their assigned roles. I pulled into my parents' driveway in Connecticut at exactly 5 o'clock. I drove a 10-year-old sedan with a dent in the rear bumper, reliable but invisible, just like me. Parked right in the center of the driveway, blocking everyone else, was a brand-new, charcoal gray Porsche. It gleamed under the porch lights, looking aggressive and expensive. I knew exactly whose it was. Marcus. My brother-in-law. I parked on the street and walked up the long driveway, carrying a large bowl of homemade autumn salad and a heavy bouquet of dahlias I'd grown myself. The flowers were deep burgundy, perfect for the season. I'd spent 3 months nurturing them in my small garden, making sure they bloomed right on time. My mother, Patricia, opened the door before I could even knock. "Oh, Sophia." Her eyes flicked to the bouquet, then away, as if looking at a weed. "Still playing with plants, I see." She didn't take the flowers. She didn't hug me. She looked over my shoulder toward the street. "Did you park that eyesore in front of the neighbor's house?" "It's legal parking, Mom," I said, stepping inside. The house smelled of roasted turkey and expensive perfume. "Happy Thanksgiving." Behind her, I heard squealing. Bella had arrived. Mom rushed past me, arms outstretched, her demeanor changing instantly from ice to sunshine. "There's my girl." "Oh, Bella, that dress is stunning." "Is it designer?" I stood in the foyer, holding my heavy bowl and flowers, watching my mother embrace my sister like she hadn't seen her in years. It had been 2 weeks. Bella glided in. She was beautiful, I'll give her that. She was wearing a silk dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent, and clinging to her arm was Marcus. He was wearing a suit that looked sharp but felt a little too tight, a little too shiny. He had that smile, the kind that showed too many teeth, but never reached his eyes. "Patricia, Gerald." Marcus boomed, shaking my father's hand as Dad emerged from the living room. "Great to see you. Sorry about the car blocking the drive, just wanted to keep it close. You know how it is with Italian engineering." Dad beamed. "Nonsense, Marcus. It elevates the property value just sitting there." Dad didn't even look at me. "Sophia, good, you're here. We need help setting the table. The caterers are running behind." Of course. I wasn't a guest. I was the help. I went to the dining room. The house was buzzing with relatives, aunts, uncles, cousins I barely recognized. The living room formed a semicircle around Marcus as he described his latest business venture. "It's all about leverage," Marcus was saying, his voice carrying through the house. "Real estate consulting is a shark's game. You eat or you get eaten. I just closed a deal last week that's going to net us a sweet bonus." Everyone leaned in, captivated. I knew better. Marcus was slippery. I didn't have proof, just an instinct. He was too loud, too flashy. Real money whispers, it doesn't shout in your face. Aunt Marlene caught my eye from the corner of the room. She was sitting by herself, nursing a glass of wine. She gave me a small, sad smile. Marlene was the black sheep before I took over the title. She saw things. Later, as I arranged napkins alone in the dining room, my mother introduced me to a distant cousin. "This is Sophia, my younger daughter," Mom said, waving a hand vaguely in my direction. She does gardening. I think. Something with dirt. Landscape architecture, Mom, I corrected gently. I design green spaces for corporate campuses and hospitals. She waved her hand again. Same thing, dear. Don't be pedantic. I kept folding napkins. Some battles aren't worth fighting. I was refilling the water pitcher in the kitchen when I heard them. The door to the sunroom was slightly ajar, and voices drifted through. It was Mom, Dad, and Bella. They were speaking in that hushed, conspiratorial tone families use when they think no one is listening. The cruise leaves December 15th, Mom was saying. 2 weeks in the Caribbean. The whole family. You, Marcus, the kids, your father and me, Dad added. Even Grandma Grace, if she's feeling well enough to travel with the nurse. My hand froze on the pitcher handle. A family trip. What about Sophia? Bella asked. Her voice wasn't concerned, just checking a box. Silence. Then Dad cleared his throat. She's busy with work. Besides, a trip like this is expensive. We don't want to burden her. You know she struggles to make ends meet with that gardening job. They hadn't asked if I was busy. They hadn't asked if I could afford it. They had simply decided I wasn't worth including. I pushed the door open. I'm not invited, I stated flatly. 3 faces turned. Mom's smile tightened. Dad suddenly became very interested in his coffee cup. Sweetheart, Mom started, her voice dropping to that patronizing tone she used when I was 5. This trip is to celebrate Marcus's recent success. It's really more of a tight-knit family thing. I'm not family. I asked. It's not about you, Sophia, Bella said, her voice honeyed. We just didn't think you'd be interested. You're always so independent. Independent. The word they used when they meant outsider. I was about to respond, to maybe finally scream, when I noticed movement behind me. Grandma Grace stood in the hallway, her frail hand gripping her walker. She was 90 years old, shrinking a little more every year, but her eyes were still sharp. She looked at me, then at them. She reached out and squeezed my arm. Her grip was weak, but her presence was heavy. Sophia, help your grandmother sit down, Mom instructed, already steering the conversation away from the trip. She shouldn't be standing so long. Before she disappeared around the corner, Grandma Grace looked back at me. Her lips moved silently. Call Thomas Smith this week. I frowned. Thomas Smith. Her old lawyer. I didn't understand, but I nodded. Dinner was a blur of clinking silverware and forced laughter. Then came the moment Dad stood up, tapping his wine glass with a fork. Before we have dessert, Patricia and I wanted to do something special for our daughters, he announced. He gestured grandly toward Bella. Bella, sweetheart, come here. Bella glided forward. Mom handed her a thick, gold envelope. Bella opened it and gasped dramatically. For you and Marcus. A luxury balcony suite. 14 days. First class. The room erupted. Applause. Gasps of delight. Bella burst into tears, the pretty kind, the kind that photograph well for Instagram. Oh my God. Thank you. She threw her arms around both parents. This is too much. $13,000. Dad, you shouldn't have. She'd seen the price tag. Of course she had. Then Mom turned to me. The applause faded. The room grew quiet. Sophia, honey, come here. I walked forward on wooden legs. I knew something bad was coming, but I didn't know how bad. She pressed a thin, white envelope into my hands. It felt empty. I opened it. Inside was a single slip of paper. A lottery ticket. Mega Millions. $2. This is what suits your situation, dear, Mom said loud enough for everyone to hear. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. Who knows? Maybe luck will find you. The silence in the room was thick. Then, someone snickered. Then someone else. Marcus leaned back in his chair, swirling his wine, smirking at me. Luck's a long shot when you don't have the brains to back it up. But hey, $2 is $2, right, Sophia? Laughter rippled through the room. Bella covered her mouth, giggling. Oh, that's cute, Mom. Maybe she'll win $5 for gas money. I stared at the ticket in my hand. My face burned, but somewhere deeper, something shifted. A crack in the foundation. I looked at my parents. They weren't just thoughtless, they were cruel. They enjoyed this. They enjoyed putting me in my place. I smiled. It was a cold, sharp thing. Thank you, Mom, I said, my voice steady. I'm sure this will be exactly what I deserve. No one noticed the edge in my voice. They were too busy laughing. I shoved the crumpled ticket into my pocket. I didn't know it then, but I was holding a nuclear bomb in my pocket. And the timer had just started ticking. It was nearly midnight when the house finally quieted down. Most guests had left, full of turkey and gossip. Bella and Marcus had retreated to the living room to look up shore excursions for their cruise on an iPad. My parents were at the front door seeing off Uncle Barry. I was cleaning up. As usual. Sophia, be a dear and check Dad's study for extra wine glasses, Mom had called out earlier. I walked into my father's study. The room smelled of old leather and stale cigar smoke. It was a room I was rarely allowed in as a child. I saw a tray of dirty glasses on the corner of his massive mahogany desk. As I reached for the tray, my elbow knocked over a stack of papers. They slid across the desk, fanning out like a deck of cards. I sighed, kneeling to pick them up. Great, just what I need. I gathered the papers. They looked like standard bills at first. Electric, water, cable. All stamped with red, overdue, or final notice ink. I frowned. Dad always bragged about his financial stability. He owned a car repair shop that had been in the family for years. Why were the electric bills overdue? Then I saw the document at the bottom of the pile. It made my blood run cold. It was a loan agreement. Not from a bank. The header was a generic payout company name I didn't recognize, but the terms were clear. Borrower, Gerald Crawford. Co-signer, Marcus Pierce. Amount, $180,000. Interest rate, 32%. 32%. That wasn't a loan, that was robbery. That was predatory. Why would Dad need nearly $200,000? And why was Marcus co-signing? My hands were shaking as I flipped to the next page. It was the collateral agreement. Collateral property, 42 Oakwood Lane. I stopped breathing. 42 Oakwood Lane. That wasn't my parents' house. That was Grandma Grace's house. The house she had lived in for 50 years. The house my grandfather built. I looked at the signature line. There was Grandma's name, Grace Mitchell. But the signature, it was wrong. It was shaky, uneven, trailing off at the end. The date next to it was from 6 months ago. I closed my eyes, remembering. 6 months ago, Grandma had fallen and broken her hip. She was in the hospital for 2 weeks, heavily sedated on pain medication. She didn't even know what day it was half the time. They made her sign, I whispered to the empty room. They made her sign away her house when she was high on morphine. Panic rose in my throat. If Dad defaulted on this insane loan, and with those overdue bills, it looked like he was close, Marcus and this shady company could take Grandma's house. I pulled out my phone. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. Click. 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 I photographed every page. The loan, the overdue bills, the collateral agreement. Sophia. What are you doing in there? It was Dad's voice from the hallway. I jumped, shoving the papers back into a messy pile. Just getting the glasses, Dad. I grabbed the tray and hurried out, my phone burning a hole in my pocket. I passed him in the hall. He looked tired, his eyes darting nervously. He didn't look like a successful businessman. He looked like a man drowning. I didn't stay much longer. I drove home to my small apartment, my mind racing. I couldn't sleep. The image of Grandma's shaky signature haunted me. I sat at my kitchen counter, staring at the wall. I needed a lawyer. But lawyers cost money. Money I didn't have. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the crumpled lottery ticket. The gift. I smoothed it out on the counter. Mega Millions. The drawing had been tonight. Maybe I won $5, I muttered, echoing Bella's taunt. I opened the lottery app on my phone. I scanned the barcode. The little wheel on the screen spun. Round and round. Congratulations. I blinked. The screen turned bright green. Jackpot winner. Amount, $100 million. I stared. I refreshed the app. I typed in the numbers manually. 04, 12. 18, 29. 44, Mega Ball 10. They matched. Every single one. I didn't scream. I didn't jump up and down. I sat perfectly still. The silence in my apartment felt heavy, like the air before a thunderstorm. $100 million. My first thought wasn't about buying a car or a mansion. My first thought was, I can save Grandma. My second thought was, they can never know. I spent the next 2 days moving like a ghost. I went to work. I watered my plants. I answered emails. I carried a secret worth 9 figures in my purse. But I still didn't have the full picture. Why did Dad owe so much money? And who was Marcus, really? I remembered Grandma's whisper. Call Thomas Smith. But before that, I needed to talk to the one person who saw everything but said nothing. Aunt Marlene. I called her. Aunt Marlene, meet me at the coffee shop on Elm. Please. It's about Marcus. She arrived wearing large sunglasses, even though it was overcast. She looked nervous. Sophia, honey, you shouldn't be digging, she said as she sat down, clutching her purse. I saw the papers, Aunt Marlene, I said, leaning in. Dad owes Marcus almost $200,000. They put Grandma's house up as collateral. Marlene let out a shaky breath. She took off her sunglasses. Her eyes were red. It's worse than that, she whispered. Marcus, he's not a consultant, Sophia. He runs a private lending business. He preys on people who can't get bank loans. He got your father hooked on some bad investment schemes years ago. Gerald has been borrowing from Marcus to pay off the interest on previous loans. It's a spiral. He's a loan shark, I said, the realization settling in my stomach like a stone. My brother-in-law is a loan shark. And there's something else, Marlene said. She pulled out her phone. I shouldn't show you this. But if you're going to fight them, you need ammo. She opened her photo gallery. Last month, at the anniversary party, Marcus left his phone on the table when he went to the bathroom. It lit up. She slid the phone across the table. It was a photo of a text conversation. The contact name was Diana, assistant. Message from Marcus, can't wait for this cruise to be over. Once the house deal closes and I get the deed, I'm out. Message from Diana, what about the wife? Message from Marcus, Bella. She's served her purpose. She's annoying as hell. Divorce papers are already drafted. We'll be celebrating in Cabo by January, babe. I stared at the screen. The cruelty was breathtaking. He wasn't just stealing Grandma's house. He was planning to discard my sister like trash the moment he got paid. Does Bella know? I asked. No, Marlene wiped a tear. She thinks he's her Prince Charming. She has no idea she's living in a fairy tale written by a monster. I handed the phone back to Marlene. My hand wasn't shaking anymore. Thank you, Aunt Marlene. What are you going to do, Sophia? You can't stop them. Marcus has lawyers. He has power. I touched the purse by my feet, where the ticket was safely tucked inside a Ziploc bag. I have a lawyer too, I said. And I have something Marcus loves more than anything. What's that? Capital, I said. Lots of it. The next morning, I stood in front of a brick building downtown. Smith and Associates. Thomas Smith was older than I expected, with silver hair and kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. He was the kind of lawyer who still used a fountain pen. Miss Crawford, he said, shaking my hand. Your grandmother said you might reach out. She's been worried. Mr. Smith, I found documents. My father and Marcus Pierce. I know, he interrupted gently. I know about the house. He pulled a file from his desk. Your grandmother was heavily medicated when she signed that transfer deed. I've reviewed the medical records. Legally, we have a strong case for fraud and coercion. But proving it in court takes time. And time is something your grandmother's house doesn't have if your father defaults. I can pay it, I said. Thomas looked at me over his glasses. It's a significant amount, Sophia. Roughly $200,000 to clear the lien and legal fees. I can pay it, I repeated. And I want to sue to get the deed back in her name. Irrevocably. I reached into my bag and pulled out the validation receipt from the Lottery Commission. I hadn't claimed the money yet, I was waiting for legal advice, but the numbers were verified. Thomas took the paper. He read it. Then he took off his glasses and cleaned them. He read it again. 100 million, he said softly. I want to set up a trust, I said, my voice firm. For Grandma. I want to buy the house back. I want to pay for 24-hour nursing care, so she never has to go back to that facility. And I want to make sure my parents and Marcus can never touch a dime of it. Thomas smiled. It was a genuine, warm smile. We can do that. In fact, we can do better. We'll set up an LLC to claim the winnings, so your name stays out of the press for as long as possible. We'll call it the Dahlia Trust. I smiled. Perfect. There is one more thing, Thomas said. Your grandmother, she didn't just want me to help you with the house. 10 years ago, she set up a small trust fund for you. It's not millions, but it's about $500,000. She instructed me to release it to you when you turn 35, or in the event of a family crisis where Sophia needs to escape. I felt tears prick my eyes. Grandma had always known. She had always been looking out for me, even when she couldn't speak up. Let's get to work, Thomas, I said. The next week was a blur of paperwork. I set up the LLC. I authorized Thomas to prepare the legal challenge against the deed. Meanwhile, the Crawford family was preparing for their royal departure. I went to the house one last time before they left. They were loading suitcases into a hired van. Marcus was barking orders at the driver. Careful with that Louis Vuitton. That leather scratches if you look at it wrong. Bella was taking selfies by the car. Bon voyage to us. #cruise life #blessed. Mom saw me standing by my car. Oh, Sophia, she said, checking her watch. You came to see us off. That's sweet. Don't worry about the house while we're gone. We turned the water off. I hope you have a safe trip, I said. We will, Dad said, clapping Marcus on the shoulder. Best vacation of our lives, right son? Absolutely, Gerald. We're going to celebrate our future. Marcus winked. I knew exactly what future he meant, one without Bella, and with Grandma's house sold for cash. Bye, sis. Bella waved, not looking up from her phone. Try not to have too much fun with your plants. They piled into the van. I watched them drive away. They looked so happy. So confident. I went back to my apartment. The silence was different now. It wasn't lonely, it was anticipatory. Like the deep breath before a plunge. 2 days later, I was at Thomas's office finalizing the LLC paperwork when my phone buzzed. It was a text from Bella. Hey sis. Hope you're good. Listen, weird thing. Dad's credit card got declined at the onboard shop. Probably a bank glitch, LOL. Can you Venmo me $500? Just until we sort it out. I really need this cute wrap for dinner tonight. I stared at the message. A bank glitch. Right. Or maybe the creditors had finally frozen Dad's accounts. The audacity was stunning. She leaves for a luxury cruise I wasn't invited to, mocks my job, and then asks me for money 2 days later because she needs a wrap. I typed back, sorry, Bella. I don't have $500 to spare. Things are tight with the gardening work, remember? Ask Marcus. He's the financial expert. 3 dots appeared. Then disappeared. Then, whatever. Thanks for nothing. I put the phone down. Thomas, is the paperwork ready? It is, Thomas said. The funds will be wired to your new account within 48 hours. After taxes, it's roughly $62 million. Good, I said. Because I have a feeling I'm going to need it sooner than we thought. 3 days into the cruise, the news broke. I was sitting in my living room, watching the local news channel. The anchor, a woman with perfect hair, was beaming. And in local news, a lucky resident of our very own town is waking up a whole lot richer today. The State Lottery Commission has announced that the single winning ticket for the $100 million Mega Millions jackpot was sold right here at the Quick-Mart on Henderson Avenue. I took a sip of tea. The Quick-Mart on Henderson Avenue. The exact store where Mom had stopped to buy gum and, as an afterthought, my $2 joke gift. The winner has chosen to remain anonymous, the anchor continued, claiming the prize through a limited liability company. But rumors are swirling. If you bought a ticket at Quick-Mart, check your pockets. I knew exactly what was happening on that cruise ship right now. Dad checked the local news obsessively online. It was his way of feeling connected to his empire back home. My phone sat on the coffee table. Face up. Silent mode off. I waited. 10 minutes passed. Then it buzzed. Mom. I let it ring. It stopped. Then immediately buzzed again. Dad. I took another sip of tea. Then Bella. Then Marcus. Within an hour, I had 43 missed calls. The text messages started flooding in. Mom, Sophia, did you hear the news? Dad, call me back. Immediately. Bella, OMG sis, are you watching the news? Marcus, hey Sophia, pick up the phone. Important. They knew. Or at least they suspected. The coincidence was too big. Mom knew she bought the ticket at that store. She knew the date. By evening, the number of missed calls had climbed to 79. I started listening to the voicemails. It was a fascinating case study in human desperation. First voicemail, Mom, 10:15 a.m., Sophia, honey, it's Mom. Just calling to say hi. We miss you. Call me back when you get a chance. Voice dripping with fake sugar. Fifth voicemail, Dad, 11:30 a.m., Sophia. Pick up. I know you have your phone. We need to verify something about that ticket your mother gave you. Tone shifting to commanding. 20th voicemail, Marcus, 2 p.m., Sophia, look. If you won, you need protection. There are sharks out there. I can help you structure the assets, so you don't lose half of it to taxes. Don't do anything stupid. Call me. The irony of a shark warning me about sharks. 45th voicemail, Bella, 4:45 p.m., Sophia, seriously. Mom is freaking out. She says she remembers the numbers. Why are you ignoring us? We're family. Don't be selfish. Selfish. That was rich. I sat there listening to them unravel. For 32 years, I had craved their attention. I had wanted them to call me, to ask about my day, to care. Now they were blowing up my phone, but not for me. For the ticket. If I hadn't found those papers in Dad's desk, I might have answered. I might have been naive enough to think, finally, I can help them. Finally, they'll love me. But I had the papers. I had the truth. I felt a strange mix of power and profound sadness. I was about to destroy my family. But then I corrected myself, I wasn't destroying it. I was just exposing the rot that was already there. I typed a single message into the family group chat. I'll video call tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Everyone needs to be present. There is something important I need to share. The responses were instantaneous. Mom, thank God. We'll be there. Marcus, good girl. We're ready to help. Bella, finally. I spent the next 2 hours preparing. I set up my laptop on my kitchen table. I arranged the documents on my screen so I could share them with a click. I put on a nice blouse, not expensive but professional. I pulled my hair back. I looked at myself in the mirror. I didn't look like the gardener anymore. I looked like a woman who was done being a doormat. At 7:59 p.m., I sat down. My heart was hammering against my ribs, but my hands were steady. I clicked Start Meeting. The screen flickered to life. Suddenly, my small kitchen was filled with their faces. They were crowded around a laptop in what looked like a ship's lounge. Behind them, through the window, the Caribbean Ocean was a stunning turquoise. They looked anxious. Excitement warred with greed in their eyes. Sophia. Mom cried out, her voice pitching high. There's our girl. Oh, we've been so worried. Why didn't you answer? We miss you so much, honey, Dad added, leaning in. He was wearing a tropical shirt that looked ridiculous given the tension in his jaw. We really wish you were here with us. Hi sis, Bella waved from the back, holding a cocktail. You look different. Did you do something to your hair? They had never complimented me in my life. It was nauseating. Marcus was sitting front and center, arms crossed, looking like he was about to close a deal. Audrey, good to see you, he said smoothly. Let's cut to the chase, shall we? The news is going crazy. Thank you all for making time, I said calmly. My voice sounded strange in my own ears, detached, cool. I know you're busy enjoying your vacation. Family comes first, Mom declared. Always. So Dad pressed, unable to wait. Is it true? The ticket. I looked at them. Really looked at them. I saw the hunger. I saw the calculation. Yes, I said. I won. The reaction was instantaneous. Screams. Clapping. Bella actually jumped up and down. Mom grabbed Dad's arm. Oh my God. Mom shrieked. I knew it. I bought that ticket. I knew it was lucky. How much? Marcus asked, his eyes narrowing. Is it the full jackpot? $100 million, I said. The silence that followed was heavy, pregnant with the weight of that number. Sophia, Marcus said, his voice dropping to a low, serious register. That is life-changing money. You're going to need help managing that. Investments, tax strategies, asset protection. You can't trust banks. You need family. I have a lawyer, I interrupted. Lawyers are thieves, Dad said quickly. Marcus knows finance. He's the best. Sure, I said. Before we talk about the money, though, there are some things this family needs to know. Some things we need to clear up. Marcus's smile flickered. What kind of things? The truth, I said. I hit the share screen button. The first document popped up on their screen. It was the loan agreement. What is this? Bella asked, squinting at the screen. This, I said, is a loan agreement between Dad and Marcus. $180,000. At 32% interest. Dad's face drained of color. He looked like he'd been punched in the gut. Where did you get that? He whispered. And this, I clicked to the next image, is the collateral agreement. The image of the deed to Grandma's house filled the screen. The shaky signature was clearly visible. You signed over Grandma's house, I said, my voice rising just a little. You waited until she was medicated, barely conscious, and you made her sign away her home. Sophia, you don't understand business, Marcus barked, his smooth facade cracking. That was a necessary financial maneuver. It's temporary. It's fraud, I said. My lawyer, the one you think is a thief, has already filed a challenge. We have the medical records. We have the timeline. Mom put a hand over her mouth. Sophia, please. This is private. Not anymore, I said. And Bella. You might want to look closer at your husband. What? Bella looked confused. What are you talking about? I clicked the final image. The screenshots of the text messages between Marcus and Diana. Can't wait until this is over. Once the house deal closes, I'm out. She served her purpose. Divorce papers are already drafted. I read the text aloud, my eyes locked on the camera. Divorce papers are already drafted. Bella froze. She turned slowly to look at Marcus. Marcus. Who is Diana? Marcus stood up, his chair scraping violently against the floor. That's fake. She photoshopped that. She's jealous, Bella. She's always been jealous of you. Am I? I looked directly at my sister. Look at his face, Bella. Does that look like an innocent man? Marcus's face was a mask of fury and panic. He looked at the screen, then at Bella, then he realized he was cornered. He didn't apologize. He didn't beg. He just grabbed his phone and stormed out of the frame. Marcus. Bella screamed, bursting into real tears this time. Marcus, come back. Mom was crying softly. Dad just sat there slumped over, looking old and defeated. Here is what is going to happen, I said, my voice cutting through the chaos. They all looked at me. The gardener. The invisible daughter. I am using my money to pay off the loan, I said. I am clearing the lien on Grandma's house. Dad looked up, hope sparking in his eyes. Oh, Sophia, thank you. We knew you would. I'm not finished, I snapped. The deed will be transferred back to Grandma Grace. And then, it will be put into a trust. A trust that I control. I leaned into the camera. None of you will ever have a claim to that property again. You will not live there. You will not sell it. You will not borrow against it. It is hers. And when she passes, it will be a sanctuary for women who need help. But we're family, Mom pleaded. We're your parents. We're broke, Sophia. If Marcus leaves, if the shop closes. Family doesn't steal from 90-year-old women, I said. Family doesn't treat their daughter like a servant and then ask for money. Sophia, please, Dad said, his voice breaking. We made mistakes. You didn't make mistakes, Dad. You made choices. And now, I'm making mine. I looked at the screen one last time. The tropical paradise behind them looked like a prison now. Enjoy the rest of your cruise, I said. Because when you get back, the locks will be changed. I moved my mouse to the end call button. Sophia, wait. Mom screamed. I clicked. The screen went black. The silence in my apartment after the call was deafening. I stared at the blank screen of my laptop. I thought I would feel triumphant. I thought I would feel like a superhero. Instead, I just felt tired. Deep in my bones. My hands were shaking again. I wrapped them around my cold cup of tea. I had just detonated a bomb in the middle of my family. My phone started buzzing again immediately. Mom. Dad. Bella. I turned it off. Completely off. I put it in a drawer in the kitchen. 10 minutes later, there was a knock at my door. I tensed. No one knew where I lived. I had just moved to this apartment a few months ago. Had they sent someone? I looked through the peephole. It was Aunt Marlene. She looked exhausted. She was holding a grocery bag. I opened the door. How did you find me? Thomas Smith, she said. He called me. Said you might need a friend tonight. She walked in and set the bag on the counter. It clinked, wine. I assume you did it, she asked. I did, I said. I told them everything. Showed them the papers. The texts. Marlene nodded. She poured 2 glasses of wine. How did they take it? About as well as you'd expect on a sinking ship, I said, taking the glass. Bella is devastated. Marcus ran away. Mom and Dad are desperate. Good, Marlene said, taking a sip. It's about time. She looked at me. You saved Grace, Sophia. Never forget that. Whatever mess happens next, you saved your grandmother. And the mess did happen. Faster than I imagined. It turned out I wasn't the only one with a grievance against Marcus. 3 days after the video call, while the family was still stuck on the ship, awkward doesn't even begin to cover it, I imagine, Diana, the assistant, went nuclear. Apparently, when Marcus stormed out of the lounge, he called her. He probably blamed her for the leak, or maybe he tried to dump her to save his marriage. Whatever he said, it was the wrong thing. Diana took to Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. She didn't just post the texts. She posted photos. Receipts from hotels. Flight confirmations paid for with client funds. And she posted a video statement, mascara running down her face, fueled by rage and possibly vodka. Marcus Pierce is a liar and a fraud, she declared to the camera. He told me he loved me. He told me he was investing people's money. It's a Ponzi scheme. He's been using new loans to pay off old investors for years. The video went viral locally. By the time the cruise ship docked in Miami, the state attorney general's office was waiting. I watched it on the news from my living room. Marcus was escorted off the ship in handcuffs. Not for the loan to my dad, but for wire fraud across 3 states. Karma, as it turns out, is very efficient. Dad wasn't arrested, but his financial ruin was absolute. Without Marcus to juggle the debts, the house of cards collapsed. He had to declare Chapter 7 bankruptcy. The repair shop, the one he had neglected while trying to look like a big shot, was liquidated to pay creditors. And Mom? She called me 2 weeks later. I finally answered. Sophia, she said. Her voice was brittle. Hello, Mom. Your father lost the shop, she said. No, hello. No, how are you? Just accusation. I heard. I'm sorry. You could have stopped this, she said, her voice rising. You have millions. You could have paid off the debts quietly. You didn't have to humiliate us. You didn't have to ruin Marcus. I didn't ruin Marcus, Mom. He broke the law. And I didn't ruin Dad. He spent money he didn't have. You're so cold, she spat. When did you become so cold? We raised you better than this. You raised me to be invisible, I said calmly. You raised me to be the backup plan. And now, I'm the only one standing. We have nowhere to go, she said, her voice dropping to a whisper. The bank is taking our house. Grandma's house is locked up. Grandma is coming home next week, I said. I hired nurses. She'll be comfortable. Can we stay there? Just for a while. With her? I closed my eyes. It would be so easy to say yes. To be the savior. To buy their love one last time. But I remembered the lottery ticket. This is all that's appropriate for your situation. No, Mom, I said. That wouldn't be appropriate for your situation. I hung up. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. But as I put the phone down, I looked out the window. The sun was setting, casting a golden light over my small garden on the balcony. My dahlias were blooming. They were strong. They had survived the frost. And so had I. It took 3 weeks to legally scrub the stain of Marcus Pierce off 42 Oakwood Lane. Thomas Smith was a magician. He didn't just clear the lien, he scorched the earth. He filed a motion that not only voided the fraudulent transfer, but also placed a permanent protective covenant on the property. I remember the day I walked back into Grandma's house for the first time since the sale. It was a Tuesday in April. The air was crisp, smelling of wet earth and thawing soil, my favorite smell in the world. The house was empty. Marcus had stripped it of anything he thought was valuable, the antique silver, the paintings, even the oriental rug in the foyer. He had sold them months ago, Thomas discovered, probably to pay off interest on other loans. But the bones of the house were still there. The oak floors that creaked in that specific, comforting way. The sunroom where Grandma used to read me stories while the rain hammered against the glass. I stood in the center of the living room, listening to the silence. For the first time in months, the silence didn't feel heavy. It felt like a blank canvas. We have work to do, I said aloud. And I did. I didn't buy a Lamborghini. I didn't buy a penthouse in Manhattan. I spent the first chunk of my winnings on contractors. We renovated the entire ground floor to be fully accessible. We widened doorways for a wheelchair. We installed a state-of-the-art walk-in tub. I turned the formal dining room, a room we never used anyway, into a bright, spacious bedroom for Grandma, with French doors opening directly onto the garden. And the garden. That was my project. I hired a team, but I was out there with them every day, dirt under my fingernails. We tore out the overgrown ivy. We planted rows of hydrangeas, tulips, and Grandma's favorite, peonies. I wanted her to look out her window and see life exploding in every color. The day Grandma Grace came home was the best day of my life. Better than seeing the numbers match on the lottery app. Better than the video call where I exposed Marcus. The medical transport van pulled into the driveway. I stood there, wringing my hands, terrified she wouldn't like the changes. 2 attendants wheeled her out. She looked so small wrapped in a purple blanket. She blinked in the sunlight, her eyes adjusting to the brightness. Then, she saw the house. She saw the ramp painted to match the porch so it didn't look clinical. She saw the flower beds, freshly mulched and bursting with green shoots. Sophia, she whispered. I ran to her. Welcome home, Grandma. She reached out, Her hand was shaking less now that she was off the heavy sedatives, and touched my cheek. "You kept your promise," she said. Her voice was thick with emotion. "You brought me home." "I told you I would," I said, tears streaming down my face. "This is your house. Forever." We got her settled in her new room. I had hired a team of 3 nurses to rotate shifts, so she was never alone. Sarah, the head nurse, was an angel who made Grandma laugh within 5 minutes of meeting her. For the first time in years, I slept soundly that night in my old childhood bedroom upstairs. I felt safe. But peace is a funny thing. It creates space for you to finally process the war you just survived. A month later, the letter arrived. It wasn't an email or a text. It was a handwritten letter on plain, cheap notebook paper. The handwriting was familiar, looping and cursive, though it looked hurried. "Sophia, I don't know how to start this. I've written this letter 10 times and thrown it away. I'm afraid you'll burn it before reading. I'm writing this from a studio apartment in Endless, New Jersey. It's smaller than my old walk-in closet. And you know what? It's the first honest place I've lived in 5 years. I'm sorry. Not because I want money. Please believe me, I don't want a dime. I'm sorry because I should have defended you. I knew Mom and Dad treated you like the help. I knew it was wrong. But I liked being the favorite. I liked the attention. It made me feel special, and I was so terrified of being ordinary that I let them treat you like you were invisible. I didn't know about Diana. I swear on my life. I knew Marcus was shady. I signed papers I shouldn't have. I looked the other way when cash appeared in envelopes, but I didn't know he was planning to leave me. I was a fool. The divorce is finalized. I'm working as a receptionist at a dental office. I answer phones and file insurance claims. It's boring and my feet hurt, and for the first time in my life, I'm actually proud of myself. You don't have to forgive me. I don't expect you to. I just wanted you to know that I see you now. I see what I missed for 30 years. Love, Bella. I read the letter 3 times. Then I folded it carefully and put it in my desk drawer. I didn't write back immediately. Forgiveness isn't a switch you flip, it's a muscle you have to rebuild after it's been torn. But 2 weeks later, I texted her. Coffee. Next Tuesday. 10 a.m. The place on Main Street. She arrived 15 minutes early. I almost didn't recognize her. The Bella I knew wore 6-inch heels and designer dresses. This Bella was wearing jeans and a simple sweater. Her hair was pulled back in a ponytail, and she wore almost no makeup. She looked tired. She looked older. But she also looked real. "Hi," she said, standing up nervously when I walked in. "Hi," I said. We sat down. The silence stretched between us, but it wasn't the hostile silence of Thanksgiving. It was the awkward silence of 2 strangers trying to figure out if they could be friends. "How is Grandma?" she asked quietly. "She's good. She's happy to be home. The garden is coming in beautifully." "I miss her," Bella said. She stared at her coffee cup. "I want to visit, but I don't want to upset her." "She asks about you," I lied. Well, it was a half-lie. Grandma asked what happened to Bella, which wasn't exactly the same as missing her, but it was a start. "I heard about Dad," Bella said. "Bankruptcy court was brutal." "I heard," I said. I took a sip of my latte. "How are you managing?" "I'm surviving," Bella gave a small, self-deprecating laugh. "I learned how to budget." Who knew grocery store brand cereal tastes exactly the same as the name brand? I sold the jewelry. Most of it was fake anyway, cubic zirconia Marcus passed off as diamonds. "Fitting, right?" "He was a piece of work," I said. "He was a monster," she corrected. "But I let him in." "That's on me." She looked up at me, her eyes wet. You saved us, Sophia. Not just Grandma. You saved me. If that cruise had happened, if I had gone to Cabo with him, I would have been stranded there with nothing when the indictments came down. You blew it up before I could get on the plane. I didn't do it for you, I said honestly. I did it for Grandma. I know, she nodded. But thank you anyway. We didn't hug at the end of that meeting. We didn't promise to be best friends. But when I walked to my car, I felt lighter. The anger that had fueled me for months was starting to evaporate, replaced by something resembling pity, and maybe, just maybe, the seeds of sisterhood. I didn't stop with the house. With the bulk of the lottery winnings, I established the Grace Mitchell Foundation. I wanted to create something that would outlast the money. We set up scholarships for women pursuing careers in practical arts, landscape architecture, agriculture, sustainable design. I wanted to help women who, like me, had been told their passions were just playing in the dirt. Reading the first batch of application essays was an emotional marathon. There were so many Sophias out there. Girls who were overshadowed, girls who were told to be smaller, quieter, prettier. Approving the first 10 full-ride scholarships felt better than any luxury purchase ever could. I wasn't just a lottery winner anymore. I was a dream enabler. One afternoon, I sat in the garden with Grandma. She was in her wheelchair, a blanket over her lap, watching the goldfinches at the feeder I'd installed. You've been busy, she said, her voice raspy but strong. Just trying to manage the investments, I said, pruning a nearby rosebush. I'm not talking about the money, she said. I'm talking about the healing. I stopped clipping. I don't know if I'm healed, Grandma. I still have nightmares about the way Mom looked at me on that video call. Healing isn't forgetting, Sophia, she said. Healing is remembering without feeling the pain. She pointed to the rosebush. You have to prune the dead branches so the new ones can grow. That's what you did. You pruned the family tree. It felt like I chopped it down, I admitted. Maybe, she smiled, a mischievous glint in her eye. But look at how much light gets in now. She was right. My life was full of light. I had my work, I kept my job, by the way, because I loved it. I had my own home, a modest place just 10 minutes from Grandma's. I had a dog now, a scruffy rescue mutt named Clover who dug holes in my carefully planned beds. I had freedom. But the shadow of my parents still lingered. I knew I couldn't avoid them forever. They were living in a reality I had created for them, and eventually, I would have to face what that looked like. People ask me about my parents. They ask if we reconciled, if the money fixed everything, if blood really is thicker than water. The honest answer is complicated. My parents live in a 2-bedroom apartment in a complex on the south side of town. It's clean, but it's a far cry from the sprawling suburban home they lost to the bank. Dad works as a mechanic at a chain auto shop. He answers to a manager who is 20 years younger than him. He comes home with grease under his fingernails and an aching back. He doesn't talk about leverage or investments anymore. He talks about spark plugs and transmission fluid. Mom works at a grocery store. She bags groceries. I've heard from Aunt Marlene that she tells customers she's just helping out, pretending it's volunteer work, unable to let go of her last shred of pride. I didn't speak to them for 6 months after the call. Then, on my birthday, I got a text from Dad. Happy birthday, kiddo. Hope you're well. Love, Dad. No request for money. No guilt trip. Just a text. I replied, thank you. That was it. That was the extent of our relationship for a long time. I eventually drove by their apartment complex. I didn't go in. I just parked across the street and watched. I saw Mom walking out with a reusable shopping bag, looking tired, her shoulders slumped. She looked smaller. I felt a pang of guilt, that old, conditioned reflex to fix everything for them. I could write a check. I could buy them a condo. I could retire Dad. But then I remembered the voice on the voicemail. Why are you ignoring us? We're family. Don't be selfish. I realized that giving them money wouldn't fix them. It would only enable the same entitlement that destroyed us in the first place. They needed to learn how to stand on their own feet, just like I had to. Grandma Grace passed away peacefully in her sleep 18 months after moving back home. She died in her own bed, looking out at the garden we planted together. I was holding her hand. Her funeral was the first time I was in the same room with my parents and Bella since the incident. It was awkward. Dad wouldn't look me in the eye. Mom cried loudly, clinging to the casket, performing her grief for the few attendees. After the service, Mom cornered me by the hearse. Sophia, she said, clutching her purse. She looked at my suit, tailored, expensive. She looked at the car waiting for me. You look well. I am well, Mom, I said. We miss you, she said. Then came the pivot, inevitable as the tide. Your father, his back is getting worse. He's worried about medical bills. There it was. I took a breath. I didn't get angry. I didn't yell. I'm sorry to hear that, I said gently. He should look into the state insurance exchange. Aunt Marlene said they have good plans. Mom's face hardened. That's it. Advice. You have millions, Sophia. Millions that should have been. She stopped herself, but I heard the end of the sentence. Millions that should have been ours. I have to go, Mom, I said. Goodbye. I walked away. I didn't look back. Bella caught up with me at the parking lot. She looked good, simple black dress, sensible shoes. I saw that, she said, nodding toward Mom. She tried the medical bill guilt trip on me last week, too. Asked if I could pick up extra shifts to help out. Did you? I asked. I sent them a casserole, Bella grinned. And told them I'm saving for a night class. I'm going back to school, Sophia. Paralegal studies. I smiled. A genuine, ear-to-ear smile. That's amazing, Bella. Really? I figured I've spent enough time around lawyers lately, might as well get paid for it, she joked. Then she grew serious. Thanks for coming today. Grandma loved you best, you know. We all knew it. We just hated you for it. She didn't love me best, I said. She just knew I needed it the most. Maybe, Bella said. Or maybe she just saw who was actually worth a damn. Bella and I aren't best friends. We don't braid each other's hair. But we text. We have lunch once a month. She's rebuilding her life, brick by brick, without shortcuts. And I respect her more now than I ever did when she was the golden child. I kept the house. It's the headquarters for the foundation now. The sunroom where Grandma read to me is now a meeting room, where we interview scholarship candidates. The garden is open to the public on weekends. I still live in my modest house nearby. I still drive a Subaru, a new one, but still a Subaru. The money sits in diversified investments. It grows. It funds the foundation. It provides security. But here is the truth that the Lottery Commission doesn't put on the big check. $100 million didn't change my life. The moment changed my life. The moment I looked at a crumpled $2 ticket and decided to stop being the victim. The moment I gathered the evidence in Dad's study. The moment I clicked share screen. The money gave me options. It gave me a megaphone. But the courage? The dignity? That was mine. I had to mine that from the rock bottom of my own soul. If I hadn't won the lottery, I like to think I still would have found a way to save Grandma. Maybe it would have taken longer. Maybe it would have been messier. But I was done being the doormat. The ticket just accelerated the timeline. I often think about that Thanksgiving. The mocking smiles. The gift that was meant to be an insult. They handed me a ticket thinking it was a joke. They didn't know they were handing me the keys to my own cage. I'm Sophia. I'm a landscape architect. I'm a granddaughter. I'm a sister. And I am a woman who knows exactly what she is worth. And trust me, it's a lot more than $2. This story might sound extreme. $100 million jackpot is a fantasy for most of us. But the dynamics beneath the money. The favoritism, the financial abuse, the feeling of being invisible in your own home. That is a reality for far too many people. We are often taught that family is everything, that we must sacrifice our dignity, our financial security, and our mental health to keep the peace. We are told to be the bigger person, while others sharpen their knives. My journey taught me a brutal but necessary lesson: you cannot buy love from people who are committed to misunderstanding you. I tried for years to earn my place at the table through service and silence. It didn't work. The only thing that worked was flipping the table over. Setting boundaries isn't betrayal. Protecting your financial future isn't selfishness. And sometimes, the most loving thing you can do for toxic family members is to let them face the consequences of their own actions. It forces them to grow, even if they hate you for it. If you are the Sophia of your family, the scapegoat, the invisible one, the fixer, I want you to know that your value does not depend on their approval. You are worthy of protection. You are worthy of the truth. I want to hear from you. What is the most difficult boundary you've ever had to set with a family member? Did it bring you peace, or do you still struggle with the guilt? Or if this story resonated with you and you agree that self-worth is the real jackpot, simply comment "good" below. It tells me that we are on this journey of self-respect together. Thank you for listening to my story. Remember, know your worth and don't let anyone hand you less.